If you stay with me until the end of this video, I promise you, you won't just learn how to speak English, you'll start thinking in English, just like I did when I had nothing but a dream. Lily was humiliated in front of her dream job interviewer when she couldn't answer the simplest question in English, not because she didn't know the answer, but because her tongue froze, her mind went blank, and all she could hear was the loud thumping of her own heart mixed with the growing silence in the room. And that single moment, that crushing silence, sparked a fire in her that would never go out. She promised herself that no matter what it took, she would become fluent, not just good enough to get by, but fluent enough to inspire others. And that's exactly what happened, but not by accident, because what you're about to discover is the exact, step-by-step journey she took, how a shy, uncertain girl with broken confidence and zero English fluency transformed herself in 6 months into a confident, fluent speaker who now teaches others. And you can follow this path too, even if you think you're too old, too nervous, too far behind, or just not language smart, because English fluency isn't a gift, it's a system, and this system starts with the same decision Lily made that day, to never let fear dictate your future again. Her journey began with one powerful habit, daily immersion, and she didn't wait until she was ready, because the truth is, no one ever is, and she started by listening to one short English podcast episode every morning while brushing her teeth. Not trying to understand every word, just letting the sounds wash over her, planting seeds in her brain, while a sticky note on her mirror reminded her, one day, I'll speak like them. And over time, that 5-minute habit turned into 10, then 20, then shadowing, repeating after native speakers, mimicking tone, rhythm, pronunciation, like an actor rehearsing for the biggest role of her life. Because speaking is not about perfection. It's about courage, and courage comes from repetition, not talent. So she repeated until English phrases started slipping out of her mouth without translating in her head, until grammar stopped being rules and started being rhythm, until her fear of speaking turned into excitement. And it didn't happen in a straight line. There were days she felt stuck, days she cried, days she wanted to quit. But she didn't. Because she tracked every single word she learned in a notebook she called My Power Words, and every week, she would review them, test herself, use them in sentences, say them out loud while walking, cooking, even whispering to herself on the bus, because fluency is not built in a classroom, it's built in moments of consistency when no one's watching. And soon she added the mirror method, where she would talk to herself in English every night for 5 minutes, pretending she was giving an interview, or telling a story, or describing her day. And yes, she felt silly at first, but she kept going, because she realized English is not just something you learn, it's something you live. And by her 3rd month, she joined an online speaking group, trembling as she introduced herself in broken English. But the group was supportive, and every week she practiced more, made mistakes, got feedback, and every time she stumbled, she grew. Because the fastest way to get fluent is to speak badly until you speak well. And she wasn't just learning words, she was becoming someone new, someone who didn't freeze in conversations, someone who spoke with confidence, someone who could order food, give opinions, and even tell jokes in English. And every single step was powered by simple tools you already have. YouTube for pronunciation practice, subtitles for vocabulary growth, language exchange apps to talk to real people, and above all, a journal where she tracked her feelings, progress, and goals in English. Yes, in English, because writing what you feel in your target language connects your emotions to the language, and that makes learning stick. And when she felt lost, she reminded herself why she started, not just for a job, not just for fluency, but for freedom, the freedom to speak her mind, to travel, to learn from the world, to connect with anyone. And that's why you're here too, isn't it? You want more than grammar rules, more than vocabulary lists, you want transformation, and Lily's story is not special because she succeeded, it's special because she started exactly where you are now. Unsure, scared, but unwilling to give up, and now it's your turn, because if you follow what she did, immerse daily, shadow consistently, speak often, track progress, and write your truth in English, you will change, and yes, it will be hard, yes, it will feel slow at first, but every word you learn is a brick in the foundation of the future you're building, and one day, you'll look back and realize, the moment you decided to stop being silent was the moment everything changed. Every morning, Lily practiced shadowing, repeating English sentences exactly as she heard them, mimicking intonation, rhythm, and pronunciation with laser focus, and slowly but surely, her mouth adapted to the sounds of English like a dancer learning to flow with music. Every day, she listened to native speakers while walking, eating, or resting, not for entertainment, but to train her brain to absorb the structure and melody of English, and whenever she stumbled, she repeated that word or phrase again and again until it felt like part of her breath, like muscle memory carved into her identity. She stopped passively reading vocabulary lists and started actively living her English. When she saw a cup, she didn't say cup in Urdu and translate it. She said cup in English, thought of coffee, handle, hot, and I drink from it. She connected every word to a web of real-life meaning and memory, until her mind no longer needed a translator because English had moved in and made a home in her head. She joined online forums, commented on YouTube videos, and answered questions on Reddit, not to show off but to sharpen her skill like a sword. Every comment was a swing, every correction was sharpening the blade, and when someone laughed at her grammar, she didn't flinch. She thanked them and said, "That mistake won't live." To see another day, and with that attitude, she became unbeatable. Her fluency was not just sound, it was the result of thousands of decisions, hours of sacrifice, and a refusal to quit no matter how hard it got. She knew the secret. You don't learn English by memorizing rules, you learn it by living it, by breathing through the fear, by speaking through the shame, and by showing up when every cell in your body wants to hide. And so, every evening, Lily would return from her part-time job at the bakery, flour on her hands, tired feet dragging, but her determination remained unshaken, and instead of watching Netflix in her native language like she used to, she opened English YouTube channels that had real conversations, natural speech, and subtitles, because now she understood the hidden truth. English fluency didn't come from perfect grammar, it came from exposure, from hearing how native speakers actually spoke. Cutting words, shortening syllables, using idioms, slang, connected speech, and she noticed phrases like gonna, wanna, lemme, kinda, gotcha, and wrote them in her notebook titled Lily's Real English, and instead of just memorizing them, she used each of those words in a full sentence out loud, again and again, until her tongue stopped tripping and started dancing with rhythm and flow, and this notebook became her obsession. She carried it everywhere. To the grocery store, on the bus, at lunch break, she'd whisper the sentences to herself while stirring tea, practicing under her breath like a secret agent preparing for a mission, because it was a mission, to break free from the prison of hesitation, to unlock the world where she could speak her mind freely without the crushing fear of judgment, and slowly, people noticed. Her coworkers, once surprised by her silence, began hearing her answer confidently, her voice stronger, her sentences longer, her pronunciation sharper, and when she smiled after responding quickly to a customer in fluent English, she felt like she had conquered a mountain. And then came the next phase, the one that terrified most learners but turned out to be the most powerful, recording herself. Yes, Lily started making short selfie videos speaking in English about her day, how she felt, what she learned, and though the first few were awkward, with pauses and stutters. She refused to delete them because progress wasn't about perfection, it was about proof. And each week, she watched the videos, noticing her growth, her courage, her clearer intonation, and she even began mimicking movie scenes using shadowing techniques, pausing after every line, repeating with the same emotion, the same rhythm, the same rise and fall of voice, transforming her speaking skills like magic. And one day, standing in front of the mirror, she realized she no longer translated in her head, her thoughts flowed in English, and this breakthrough was more valuable than anything she had ever studied, because now, English wasn't something outside of her, it had become part of her identity, her voice, her confidence, her gateway to the world. And this transformation, from a shy, silent learner to a fluent, fearless speaker, was not a miracle, it was the result of a system, a mindset, and daily action. And if you reading this, follow what Lily did, speak daily, listen deeply, mimic natives, use real phrases, accept mistakes, and practice relentlessly, then fluency is not a dream, it's a guarantee. And Lily, once scared to even say hello, now mentors others, reminding them, you don't need perfect grammar to speak English, you need brave practice. And this, dear reader, is your reminder to start speaking today, even if your voice shakes, because one day, just like Lily, your English will roar. She realized that true fluency meant not just speaking well but thinking in English, breathing the language into every moment of her day, and transforming passive learning into active mastery. So Lily began narrating her life in English. While brushing her teeth, she'd say, I am brushing my teeth now, this toothbrush is soft, the minty taste wakes me up. And while walking, she'd describe her surroundings, the sky is cloudy today. The air is cool, I can hear the birds, turning ordinary moments into vocabulary building sessions, and she didn't care if people stared or judged, because to her, every English sentence spoken aloud was a seed planted in the soil of her subconscious, growing roots of confidence. And when she felt stuck or slow, instead of quitting, she asked herself, what would the fluent version of me do right now? And she'd act accordingly. She'd open a YouTube video in English. She'd repeat phrases out loud. She'd look up unfamiliar words and use them in a sentence instantly, because she knew that language doesn't grow in silence, it grows in boldness, mistakes, and repetition. And as her skills improved, she recorded herself speaking every day, even if it was just for 5 minutes. And then she listened to herself, not to criticize but to notice progress, pronunciation, clarity, and fluency. And she treated her recordings like a mirror, reflecting not just how she spoke, but how she thought. And one day, while listening to a week-old recording, she smiled in disbelief. Her accent was clearer, her pauses shorter, her vocabulary wider, and for the first time, she thought, maybe I am becoming fluent, and that belief alone gave her the courage to dream bigger. So she joined online discussion groups, left comments on English forums, and even started helping beginners in their learning, because teaching reinforced what she had learned and made her feel that she truly belonged in the world of English speakers. And when Lily realized that teaching others was actually the best way to master something herself, she started recording short 2-minute voice messages in English every morning and shared them in a small group chat with her friends who were also learning. She called it, Wake Up with Words, and each message had a theme, one day about courage, one day about mistakes, one day about dreams. And without even noticing, she was practicing fluency, improving her confidence, and building a support circle that grew from 5 friends to 500 strangers who loved her energy, and that's when she understood that fluency isn't about being perfect, it's about being fearless, and from that day, she stopped waiting to feel ready, and started using English in every situation she could, whether it was ordering food in a restaurant, answering a phone call, or even making small talk in the elevator, and yes, she messed up a lot. But every time she made a mistake, she wrote it down in her Fluency journal, and turned it into a personal challenge. For example, when she forgot the word receipt at the store and said the paper of buying, she laughed, but later searched it, practiced it, and even made a sentence of the day. Can I get the receipt, please? And she repeated that sentence 20 times until it came naturally, and this habit of turning tiny real-life failures into mini lessons changed everything, because now every awkward moment became an opportunity, and this mindset made her unstoppable. And one afternoon, when she was sitting in a park reading a novel in English, she suddenly noticed she wasn't translating in her head anymore. The words were just flowing straight into her thoughts, her emotions, and her imagination, and she gasped, realizing, I'm thinking in English, and that realization made her cry. Because it was something she dreamed of for years, and it had finally happened not because she was in a classroom, but because she created her own classroom out of life. Every street sign, every movie, every podcast, every conversation became her teacher, and she never wasted a single moment of practice. Even when brushing her teeth, she would describe her actions out loud in English like, I'm brushing my teeth with my blue toothbrush. It tastes minty, and it sounded silly at first, but this habit wired her brain to speak without hesitation, and this constant flow turned into automatic fluency. And when she traveled to another city and helped a lost tourist by giving directions fluently in English, the tourist said, "Wow, you sound native," and Lily smiled, not because she wanted to sound native, but because she wanted to sound like someone who wasn't afraid anymore, and that's exactly who she had become, fearless, fluent, and free. And as Lily began living in English, not just learning it, her confidence turned into clarity. She stopped translating in her head, stopped doubting her grammar mid-sentence, and started thinking directly in English, which was the result of one secret strategy she developed herself. The one thought, one sentence habit, where every time she had a thought in her native language, she forced herself to immediately express it in English, even if she was alone, whether it was brushing her teeth and thinking, today I have to finish my task, or walking and telling herself, I should be careful here. She was rewiring her brain's language center through repetition, and soon, English wasn't a subject anymore, it was the language of her inner voice. And as this habit got stronger, she pushed herself harder. She started using voice notes instead of texts with friends who spoke English, joined online forums like Reddit and Quora to write daily opinions on trending topics. And every weekend she did a fluency test, where she chose a topic like climate change or childhood memories and recorded herself speaking for 3 full minutes without stopping, just to challenge her flow and remove hesitation. And even though sometimes she stumbled, repeated phrases, or ran out of ideas, she never deleted those recordings, because each one was proof of growth, not perfection. And the more she embraced imperfection, the faster her fluency improved. And when she hit a plateau, that frustrating point where you feel like you're not improving, she didn't give up. Instead, she changed the game. She started teaching what she knew to others, explaining grammar concepts in Instagram Reels, making short TikTok videos breaking down phrasal verbs with fun examples, and every time someone commented, "Wow, this helped me," it built her belief that mastery comes when you share, not just learn. And the real transformation happened when she stopped asking, "Am I fluent?" and started asking, how can I express myself better today? Because that question took away the fear of being perfect and replaced it with the joy of being expressive. And that's when she started writing a blog called Lily Learns, where she documented her learning journey in English, sharing weekly updates on new expressions she discovered, cultural insights she learned from movies, and even embarrassing moments where she mispronounced words like beach and people laughed. But she wrote it all with humor and pride, turning every mistake into a relatable story that inspired others. And that blog began attracting readers from around the world, who were also struggling to become fluent, and for the first time, Lily realized that English had become her passport. Not just to opportunities, but to human connection, because now she was making friends from Brazil, Nigeria, Japan, and Germany, all through her words. And when people asked her, "Did you ever study abroad?" she smiled and said, "No, I studied online, but I practiced everywhere. In my kitchen, on my rooftop, in the market, even while talking to my cat." And the truth was, she had built her own English-speaking environment inside a non-English world, proving that you don't need to travel to become fluent. You need to transform your mindset. And just when she thought she had reached her peak, another challenge came. She had to give a live speech in English at a community event, in front of 300 people, with no script, just pure speaking, and she almost said no out of fear, but then she remembered her rule. Growth hides behind the things you fear the most, so she said yes, and prepared every day not by memorizing lines, but by journaling her thoughts in English, rehearsing while walking, recording herself during random times, even practicing eye contact in the mirror. And when the big day came, her heart was racing, her hands were cold, but the moment she stepped on stage and said, "Hi, my name is Lily, and English changed my life," the entire room went silent, listening, and what followed was not a perfect speech, but a powerful one, filled with honesty, mistakes, emotion, and truth. And when she finished, people stood up and clapped, and some even cried, not because her English was flawless, but because her courage was contagious. And that moment became the seed for her next dream, to write a book in English, sharing not just her methods, but her story. And she began working on it every morning, waking up at 5 a.m., writing one small story at a time, not caring about grammar in the first draft, just focusing on message, momentum, and meaning. And she titled it, "Fluency is Freedom," and as the pages grew, so did her self-belief. Because now she wasn't just someone who learned English, she was someone creating in English. And that changed everything. And that's when Lily finally realized, learning English wasn't just about mastering grammar, perfecting pronunciation, or memorizing words. It was about rebuilding who she was from the inside out, about turning every moment of self-doubt into a spark of discipline, and every little win into fuel for the next challenge. And now, when she looked back at the quiet girl who once struggled to say even, "How are you?" she didn't feel shame, she felt pride, because that version of her was brave enough to start, and starting was everything. She remembered the nights she cried over confusing tenses, the mornings she forced herself to speak when her voice trembled, and the hours she spent shadowing native speakers like her life depended on it, and in a way, it did, because every word she learned gave her freedom, confidence, and identity. And today, as she stood on a small stage at a local event, holding a mic in her once shaking hand, telling her story in full, fluent English to a crowd of learners just like her, she smiled and said, "If I can do it, so can you." And the crowd clapped not just for her fluency, but for her journey. And with that fire still glowing in her heart, Lily took a deep breath, looked straight into the camera, and said, "This is just the beginning. From today, I will share everything I've learned, every trick that helped me, every method that changed my life. I'm Lily, And in my upcoming videos, I will guide you step by step on how to become fluent in English, not just to pass a test, but to change your life, the same way I changed mine. Now it's my turn to help others. I'll share everything I've learned about English fluency in my next videos. Thank you so much for being with me on this journey. Remember, if I can learn English, so can you. Keep going, never stop believing in yourself. I'll see you in the next video, with more real tips that actually work. Until then, take care and bye-bye.